up. This is the regular meeting of the Town of Harwich Community Preservation Committee in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, Mass. 02645 at 6 p.m. Thursday, May 9th, 2024. On the call to order, any recording or taping notification, please notify the chair. Going to make it simplified. Welcome guests. Okay, we're going to be open for public comments. Welcome. Please identify yourself, sir.
Good evening. Dave Callahan. I'm a member of Real Estate and Open Space, but we have not discussed it as a committee. I am here representing myself because I have done a fair amount of research on the Judah Eldridge property, which is on your agenda for this evening. I'm here tonight to talk about Judah, and I would greatly appreciate it if we could find answers, or you could ask questions of whoever is coming to speak for the following questions. And what I'm concerned about, I've got a couple of things that leads on to the final question, but I want to know why it took over 5 years for the approval, because on May 7th, 2018, town meeting approved this, and it was only, the taking of the property was not recorded until July 19th of 2023. I want to know what went on in the intervening 4 years and how much was expended in legal fees, genealogical research, deed research, and survey costs. And I'll explain why in a minute. The assessor's database currently shows the assessed value of that property as $701,800, not the $396,000 that was approved at town meeting in May. I'm assuming the amount has to be put, that amount of 700,000 plus has to be put into escrow for 3 years after the property is taken, and so that potential heirs of Judah can come forward and they would be paid their share. I'm assuming it's that because that's the current assessment when I looked at the assessor's office this week, or this morning, actually. So a big question I have is, if town meeting approved $396,000, where did the remaining $332,000 that has to go into escrow come from? And was it approved at town meeting? My most important questions, however, revolve around taxes due on the property. According to the latest tax lien that I have, which was dated August 18th, 2023, there was $708,161 due in taxes, which exceeds the amount that would be put in escrow. So, getting back to the cost factor, were the costs of taking that I noted earlier added to the tax lien, and if not, where was the money taken from? Because all of these things are costs related to acquiring this particular piece of property. So, finally, the main issue I have is, will the back taxes that are due be paid from the escrow account, thereby completely draining it? If so, is it needed, and most importantly, is it legal to use conservation restricted CPC funds to pay taxes to the general fund when the town has the ability to write off the tax lien as they have received something in lieu of taxes, the property? So basically, I'm interested to know, and I think you would be as well, that at the end of the 3 years of escrow, not given the 3 years that you've been holding up, they've been holding up your money, actually 5 years they've been holding the money, But even at the end of, if it stays for another 3 years in escrow and doesn't go to pay the taxes, which is fine by me, how much can the CPC expect to have returned to it 3 years from July 19th, 2023? Thank you.
You're welcome. Just as far, would you please send me an email with the information that you just stated? Send it to the cpc@townofharwich.gov. And would you also CC the town administrator on that, please? And then CC the Board of Selectmen on that, please. Yes, cpc@townofharwich.gov.
No, it's
No, it's not.
Isn't, yeah.
No, it's not.
Is it?
MA.
Oh, there you go, okay. Thank you for correcting it. The other thing is, the last email I got on this particular subject was 5/2/24. And at that time, the email states that they're referring it to Katie Klein
You're,
for whatever questions that they have.
you're still in public comment.
You're not allowed to comment.
So, oh, that's right. So anyway, thank you for the information. Please forward that information to the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator,
And you.
and me, yeah. Okay, anybody else for public comment? Thank you. Hearing none, moving on. All right, new business.
No, approval of minutes.
Oh, April 11th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of April 11th, 2024 for the CPC meeting.
Second.
Discussion,
What?
discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now, recap of town meeting. Open to the board. Statements, Robert?
The only thing is, after going through the articles, I kind of think we should revisit packaging them into one or two motions. It was pretty painful going through them individually.
Anybody else? Kathy?
I don't think it was painful at all. I thought it moved very quickly and boom, boom, boom. I think the explanations were quite clear and concise, and I think they helped people understand what they were looking at. I think people were, just interested in moving through the articles. They think that we did a good job vetting them. Did they all pass?
They all passed.
I tend to agree with Kathy. It's my first time being part of the committee and then going to town meeting and going through. I mean, they moved a lot quicker than some of the agenda items, which was, it was nice. But it was, I don't know, it's a lot of money, so having them split out and like identify each one individually is powerful to me.
Thank you, Emily.
And I'll just say, I wouldn't, I don't have a strong opinion either way. I do think my experience in Yarmouth is that they will group them by topic. So you would have the historic grouped together, the housing grouped together, and I would not be offended if the Board of Selectmen chose to do that in their warrant.
Anybody else? Robert?
I mean, previously, at least they grouped the ones under, was it under 100,000?
Yeah.
And I thought that was appropriate.
Anybody else on the board? I thought it was an interesting comment by the town moderator. One vote.
Oh.
But anyway, little levity.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Alrighty, update status reports. Harwich Natural Resource Department, 2023, Article 34, Skinnequit remediation project, 92,000 even. Yep, no one's here to
No one's here.
have a discussion with that, so. Okay, we'll move on.
Well, do we want to discuss what we know about it?
You've got the floor.
Well, I'm just saying, they sent us a report, and they basically used or encumbered approximately 89,000 of the 92,000. I believe the last 25,000 is encumbered for some sort of monitoring. And they should, upon completion of that, come to us with the rescission of whatever's left.
Questions, board members, anybody else? Okay.
Well-
John?
John, do you have a personal comment at all in terms of the
I don't-
pond? Does it look?
I will comment, the pond looks fine right now, but how the pond looks at this moment is,
It's not August.
yeah, exactly. It's early spring,
Mhm.
water is typically very clear, you know, late winter, early spring. It's not till you get to the warm weather months when the pond becomes stratified, cold water stays on the bottom, warm water stays on
Right.
top, that, you know, if there's going to be lack of clarity. I actually talked to Ken Wagner, the guy who's doing that, when he came the end of April to do the testing, and he measured the Secchi depth with his measure of how clear the water is at over 4 meters, which is like 13, 14 feet, which is great. So,
Do you know how long the monitoring's gonna take? Is it an annual thing, or?
it's monthly for 3 years, in the warm weather months, starting in April, going through October, November. And the rest is the subject of the conservation order of conditions, which I am not prepared to speak about, and I probably don't want to say any more anyway, because
Okay.
of my status in this.
Okay.
Kelly? Thoughts?
I would have liked to have a representative here this evening, so then John doesn't have to go off of his own personal information. I got a little confused by the numbers reported because they don't add up to 92,000, so maybe I am confused about that, because it said the remaining balance is 25,000, and that in 63 doesn't add up to 92, so maybe I misunderstood. That's my only question.
No, there's nothing to misunderstand. They're just not planning on spending all of it. They're gonna have like a $2,000 to $3,000 left over if it doesn't go beyond.
That's what that means, then that sounds
That's what-
fine. I would have phrased it differently.
Okay, anybody else? All right, moving on. Penrose LLC, 2022 Article 35, Cape Cod Housing Project for $100,000. Welcome.
Hi.
Podium, sit, your choice, and please identify
May I
yourself.
sit?
Yeah?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right. Good evening, Board, Mr. Chair. My name is Rio Sacchetti. I'm a developer with Penrose, the project manager of the Cape Cod 5 redevelopment project in Orleans. So, in terms of an update, we closed on the purchase and all the construction financing on December 26th. So it was a crazy time to close, but we had to lock funds in, so it was important that we had to close before the end of the year. And of course, the longer you don't close on a construction contract, usually the more expensive the costs get. So that's all locked in. So we closed right after Christmas, the day after Christmas. We didn't start construction because of the holidays until I think the second week of January. The contractor is Delbrook JKS. They started the construction, I think, 2 weeks right after the closing. At the closing, we executed all the mass docs, and that includes a affordable housing restriction, which is basically the regulatory agreement that enforces the affordability of the units. And I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the Mass Docs program, but it's a set of documents the state created to help, because there's usually multiple funders of affordable housing, and it's a way to streamline the process so you don't end up having multiple deed restrictions saying the same things. I believe Harwich, though, has its own other separate agreement. We have as well, but they're also a party to the Mass Docs. And it also included, we have 3 loans from Mass Housing. We have multiple loans from Mass EO HLC, including, in addition, we also have federal tax credits and state low-income housing tax credits as well. And we have CPC funds from 8 different communities, which I think might be a new world record. I can't imagine another project with more. After closing, well, we applied for the funds pre-closing, but after closing, and this was in January, we were awarded ARPA funds from the county of Barnstable. That was about $1.5 million. And so that's new money into the project, but the state had given us additional funds to get us to closing, to go ahead, with the expectation that if we do get ARPA funds, that they would reduce some of the funds that they're putting in. So they basically, we applied for the ARPA funds, I think, during August, September. But in order to help us get the project closed and start, they committed to providing additional funds should we not get the ARPA, but we ended up getting the ARPA. We're executing, we're finalizing those ARPA documents now. The county of Barnstable is going to also join in to the Mass Docs as well, so they'll be added to the existing affordable housing restriction. At the closing too, prior to the closing, but I think this would be around November, the state EOHLC approved the final preferences that they'll allow on the project. So they typically allow only a 70% total preference, and the preferences are only for lease up. So once the project's leased, there's no ongoing preference for all future units. And it's a fair housing issue, and so the state, the attorneys at EOHLC do the approval to make sure nothing violates fair housing, federal laws. So we went in, and so typically they only allow 70%. We asked for 75%, and that was a breakdown of 65% to the town of Orleans, and then 10% for the other towns. And we had got that on our project in Eastham, so there was a precedent for it, but the state was unwilling to give it to us for this project. So instead of giving us 75%, they gave us what their typical max is, 70%. So what we did was we reduced the Orleans and then the other town preferences proportionately. So I think where we ended up was a 63% preference to Orleans and then 7% other towns. Going back to construction, what's been done to date? So there's really like 3 parts to the construction. There's the existing building, which is being rehabbed and converted. There's a new addition being put on to the existing building, and then there's also some new townhomes. So the work that's been done to date, we've totally demoed the interior of the existing building. The framing and the rough-ins of the MEB has started already on the upper floors, so that's ongoing. And we've started replacing the roof. For the new addition, we've done the excavation, we put in the retaining walls, we've poured the foundation, and did the underground utility hookups. That hasn't started framing yet, that's coming up soon. And then for the townhomes, that's the one furthest behind, well, we're not behind schedule, but this is according to schedule. It's slower to start because obviously the existing building's already there. We've done the excavations, put in the footings and the foundation walls. We haven't poured the slab yet. We're putting in the underground plumbing right now, and I think the slab is scheduled to come in next week, or start being poured next week. We've also started with the elevator shaft. I forgot to mention this on the addition, because there was one elevator and we're adding another elevator. Because when it's housing, if one elevator goes down and you have somebody on the third floor, it's, and elevators tend to go down. So having one is not ideal. So we're adding a new elevator. I think that covers pretty much all my updates. And if folks, we are having a groundbreaking ceremony. It's scheduled for June 18th. We haven't sent invitations out. We're just filling out basically the invitation list now. And the other gentleman over there mentioned the CPC email address. I actually just pulled that off the website yesterday. I knew that when you were saying it, David, because we will be sending an invitation to that for any folks who would like to attend. It would be nice to have people there. I also brought 4 copies of the written update that we submitted, so I can hand those to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open this up to the board. We're going to start with Kelly. Any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time, thank you.
Emily?
I have no questions here, thank you for the thorough update.
Marcy?
I just had some questions with the new construction. Are you looking into, like, maybe in a green energy, like solar panels, or is that not part of the specs?
Yeah, we weren't, when we initially started designing it, we looked at doing passive house, which we've done on other projects, but it was really hard because of the existing building. Because to get passive house, you really have to seal underneath the basement and put in the insulation, and we were reusing an existing one. So we are doing enterprise green communities, I believe. I don't know the exact terminology. We're working with a company, Innova, as an energy consultant. And they're also working with, I think it's Cape Light Compact, because there's additional rebates on the Cape in addition to what's typically done for mass saves for the rest of the state. And we're actually working with Cape Light right now to identify the full extent to what will be made available to the project.
Thank you.
All set, Marcy.
Set.
John?
I don't have any questions. I want to discuss emails, and I don't, because it's confusing. And I was gonna bring it up when we talked about the web, but it's come up a couple of times. And when I was going through the information packet, I noticed the email listed there, the email that I have when I send emails to you is not what the town is doing now. And,
Boy.
And it's confusing to everybody. You still get emails, but I think people should be using the current version, which somebody mentioned here.
Yeah, they just changed their domain, in the last 6
Harwich.
months, maybe? It's harwich-ma.gov, I think, now.
Right, but what we have listed on the CPC webpage is the old style, and I don't know how long that's gonna be supported. So I encourage you not to use what's on the CPC webpage. Use CPC at harwich-ma.gov.
Yeah, some of the, like, Robin Kelly uses
yeah.
one form.
Yeah.
The town admin uses the other form. It's like, so is the new I was gonna ask you,
I think
is the
they're both
new
supported right now.
website?
It doesn't have to do with the new website.
Yeah, we are.
No, it's not related. And I don't know what their plans are. They changed the form, just, we should be using the new thing, so whenever they decide to eliminate the old thing, it's not an issue for anybody.
I mean, another.
So,
Hold
sorry to
on.
take up
Hold
time.
on, hold on. Johnny, you all set?
I'm all set,
All
thank
right.
you.
Mary?
Good evening. So I just had a couple of questions. What is your anticipated occupancy date? Do you know yet?
We have one, we have an end date for the construction contract. It's in between 16 and 17 months. So right now, I forget the exact substantial completion date, but it's early June 2025. And, you know, that can shift. The big thing causing a lot of construction delays the past couple of years was the electrical switchgear from the utilities. And, but we got a head start on that. We actually ordered that last summer before we even closed on the purchase of the property. So we're actually ahead of schedule so far, but we're only about 10% complete, so. It usually always takes longer and rarely is delivered earlier. But, so we're sort of expecting by the end of June, we'll start getting COs. So new residents would start moving in July. And what we typically do, we start the marketing for the lottery.
That was my second question. When would
Hey,
people
we could
anticipate
go in there.
looking for the lottery so that they could, you know, try and get in on
Yeah.
the ground level?
We usually do it between 60 and 90 days, probably closer to the 90 days before expected COs. And what we would end up doing is we would advertise in a lot of local publications, websites. We'd also put out some physical advertising on the property. And there's also a new state website for affordable housing. I forget the name of it, but it would be listed in there. I think it's already listed there, actually. And we would be holding some public meetings, probably in the Orleans Town Hall, explaining the lottery process. And so that would also be advertised. So we may have multiple ones of those. That is really not in my area, but we have a separate management company.
You
that
probably
comes
think
in.
February to March, though, you'd be looking, you were saying 60 to 90 days before occupancy.
That's right.
That it would be right around your 14 months.
That's
12,
right.
14 months. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All
That's
set,
all I
Mary?
had, David.
Kathy?
What about Bob?
You skipped over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
It's your chart showing the CPCP awards by town. You have an anticipated funding date of June 1st of this year. Is that still the case, or do we fund it when you have occupancy? How does that work? In other, when do you
Yeah.
expect your money from us?
So typically, we prefer the money that doesn't have interest on it is sooner, and then the conventional construction loan from the bank. We don't have to draw that because that reduces carrying costs. We're looking at using the ARPA funds for the last and the next contractor payment application for payments. And the reason for that is there's, I guess there's an expiration on that on the federal funds. So that's, I think the next funds we're going to be looking to draw. And then after that, we're going to start going, reaching out with requisitions for the CPC funds. So it would probably be, I would say, July.
Thank you.
All set, Bob.
Can I go now? So you do expect that they'll be used like in the next 4 or 5 months?
Yes.
Money, okay. Has the scale or scope of the project changed in the 2 years since you first came to the towns? In other words, number of units or anything like that?
No. Nothing's really changed. I mean, there might be some certain specs of some certain materials that have made change, but nothing of a significant change. So we got our comp permit, the 40B permit, I think in 2022. And then we actually submitted for our building permits, I think at the end of 2022. So we were in under the old code. So, and that was, I think, the same year we got permits. So, and then from there, there's been nothing significant change other than maybe some things that the building inspector called out or some, yeah, actually, there really hasn't been any change in materials either. So no, there's
No.
Okay,
very minor
That's
changes.
good. And quick question, so the existing building, the old Cape Cod 5 Bank, does that have a cellar?
There is, yes, well, there is an area it's not a cellar, but it's because of the grading, there is a portion of the building that's subgrade. And that's,
Photographs.
yeah, so it's not a cellar, but it's below grade, but that's not going to be any residential units there. That's gonna be like a maintenance shop and then the maintenance storage areas.
Oh, so that will be used?
And trash rooms, yeah, will be
Okay,
used.
and no cellars under the other
No,
new
the
buildings?
other ones are just slabs. Yep.
Okay. And I would suggest that on the list of people to come to these meetings about the lottery or whatever would be the housing coordinators in the towns that all provided funding. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else from the board?
Just a very
Marcy.
quick question regarding the occupancy in the housing. Is any part of these units going to be like a project-based Section 8, or are they all?
Yes, there's, I forget the exact count, I think it's 9 units. So for the federal low-income housing tax credits, the 9% ones, which is the bigger subsidy, the state requires 10% of the units be 30% AMI. So we have, so for us, and they round up, so I think we went from, that's how we ended up at 9. But for those 9, they also gave us project-based vouchers. So the project-based stay with the project and all travel with the people. And that's to help offset because of the much lower affordability. And then typically we'll get applicants that may come with mobile vouchers.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Yeah, one more question. I know that this was answered before. Are any of the units ADA accessible?
Yes, 5, I believe.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, has anybody discussed grant agreements from the different towns?
So there's Harwich and I believe one other town that are structured as grants. The other, so out of the 8 towns, I think, 6 of them are loans, forgivable loans, very similar to grants. I actually, before this meeting tonight, I went back and I found a Penrose signed grant agreement, but I didn't find a countersigned. And typically all that stuff gets signed at the closing because all the other lenders want to make sure that the money you're representing from other people are there. So I think that there's a town signed one, but I couldn't find it.
My suggestion would be to send an email to the town administrator and CC the Board of Selectmen on it, to provide some information for you.
Okay.
Is there anything from anybody else on the board? Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
and
Thank
giving
you
us an
very much.
update.
Thank you.
Okay, next,
Food Eldridge.
Article 2018, wow. Article 55, Board of Selectmen, Judah Eldridge. Property acquisition, 369. There's no one from the board here tonight, and I gave you just some rough information of what I had for an email, so we will continue on.
Well-
You want to discuss it, have at it.
No, I don't want to discuss it because I don't have any information. I just want to know, like, what we're going to do about our biannual reporting for this particular.
Well, it's interesting. I'm waiting for a member of the general public to gather some information and send it on to us. I'll be watching Monday night.
No, I'm just saying, so what, I mean, we require, it's in the guidelines that we require everyone to come before us with any open articles. And now 2 months and there's no representation, so what's our next step?
Well, what would you like to do? What do you suggest for a remedy?
Don't ask her the questions that you don't want to know the answer to. Careful asking
Well, I
questions
can't,
you don't want the answer to.
mean, I understand the argument, I get it, but,
So
go ahead.
if I may, we need an update. I mean, it's true, we need an update. I don't disagree at all. I will be honest, I never thought this was going to be resolved in 3 years. I still don't know why.
We're on year 6, I think. We're going on
don't-
year 6.
Correct. I still think there was a balance between some of the questions raised by the public are the difference between doing a tax foreclosure and doing an eminent domain, and they have different legal consequences, and council at the time advised one, I'm not sure why, but it's time for us to get an update. It truly is time for us to get an update. I'm not saying that I'm not ready to put an end to it yet, because I think it's still a valuable property that would benefit the town.
It's a large
From
piece
the-
of property that has not fallen through the cracks.
Yet,
There's just,
but there are multiple,
Disagreements.
there are multiple different ways to go about it. It's time for an update. I mean, I don't disagree with Kathy at all on that. So, and the update may be that we've hit legal blocks and we haven't been able to go one route, and now we've tried to go a second route, or we couldn't get it through, we couldn't get legal counsel or tax title or whatever to move forward on some of them. Because when you're talking about having that many heirs, it's a lot of title research. And the title research has to get done whether it's under a tax taking or whether it's done under an eminent domain taking. So that's a lot of work that has to get done.
may I ask you a question? Are you on the agenda for Monday night? You need to be on the agenda in order to solidify your arguments and get a response from them. They can listen and not respond if it's just general comment.
But I think the agenda's already set.
Yes.
Okay, so we could make it the following Monday. I'm just trying to get from A to B.
No, I understand. My intention was to do exactly as I did here this evening, on Monday, and put out my notice. Because I know these things are being recorded. And, hopefully somebody will see the fact that we're all frustrated, the fact that we're not getting information.
Okay, fair enough.
A lot of these issues are issues that we raised back in 2017 and 2018 when we were contemplating whether we were going to,
Rescind the money.
no,
Vote
approve
for
the
this,
money and
yeah.
fund it.
Well,
So,
Which was not a unanimous decision.
it was not a unanimous decision, I fully acknowledge that. I
Ms. Green.
no, and, you know, frankly, I questioned eminent domain at the time too. I thought tax title foreclosure might have been a route. Again, it costs money to go either way. It requires a lot of tax title work. It requires a lot of legal work. Either way you do it. Council was advising on eminent domain. I don't know why they haven't gotten further yet.
The general excuse is going to be for the last at least 2 to 3 years. The previous 2 to 3 years, COVID. That will be the general excuse.
I don't know.
So-
I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
Well, no,
I don't
I
know
don't
that that's
either,
true.
but I can
And I
hear
mean, I don't
what's-
know that that's the excuse.
That's my
gonna-
crystal ball when I
I
shake
don't know that
it.
that's the excuse that's gonna be put
Right.
forward. I mean, I've done tax foreclosures, and some of them go through quickly, and some of them take a very long time, because if you're doing foreclosure work, you're subject to the time frame of the land court. Land court does their own title research, and they only have typically 1 or 2 title examiners for the state. So it goes at its own pace. And sometimes they're the only ones that can do the research, even if you're trying to do an eminent domain.
Well, now that you've opened the door, if they come back and they say it's the land court, or it's the court registration of some way, shape, or form, what do we do next? We have no leverage.
You have all the leverage you want. If you want to rescind it, I don't know that I would,
That's not
I don't know
gonna
that I
get-
would want to. I think this is an important
It's not gonna get to
parcel
where the
that,
town needs to go.
I think it's an important parcel,
Right, I agree,
which is the reason I supported it in the first place.
agree.
I also don't think it's quite yet in danger of somebody being able to clear up all the title issues. And I mean, could a developer come in and want to pay the back taxes? Sure. But it's a large parcel of land, but I don't know that it's going to clear up all the title issues, so.
Kathy?
Yeah, so we do need an update, and we don't need an update just on a piece of paper. We need someone to come here and talk to us and answer our questions.
To be interrogated, yep.
No, just to answer our questions.
So I think it's a question for who's taken on the work and whether they can provide an update. But that update might need to be an executive session. So I think we need to acknowledge that as well, that it might be something that has to be done in executive session.
Okay, and in addition, I wanted to say that some additional survey work was done, and we, as a board, authorized up to $30,000 of administrative expenses for that survey. So when you're talking about what additional expenses there have been so far. We also have asked the question in this public forum about if they clearly state, if the Board of Selectmen clearly stated at a town meeting that they were not going to use the CPC funds or the CPA funds to pay back taxes, then once the escrow was completed, would those funds come back to the CPA account? We've asked that directly. We've not gotten an answer. We will continue to ask that question, and that's why we need a person here.
And again,
Okay.
and I think that's also the difference between how an eminent domain works and how a tax foreclosure works.
Right. But I think that at this point, going on 6 years, okay, we've tied
Agreed,
up
we need an update.
$360-something thousand, okay? And I think that we should be given the process right now. This is what they're gonna do, and this is how they're gonna do it, and then what the time frame is.
I don't disagree.
I think that should be more clear now for them, if one didn't work. I don't know.
I don't disagree.
John?
So I see two paths here to attempting to get information. One is the chair calls our select board representative, Mr. Handler, and request him to come to the next meeting. The other is, we have 2 select board representatives on the committee. One of them could call Jeff Handler or the chair of the select board. I mean, aren't those the correct paths to follow to attempt to get some information?
You're exactly right. So what my suggestion would be, I'll talk to the chair and see if I can get the chair here. In the meantime, the 2 select representatives talk to the representative, Jeff Handler, and ask him to come to this meeting and what it's for. So we'll attack it at 2 angles. That's a good suggestion, John.
Oh, no, that's good.
Don't be afraid, Kelly.
I'm not afraid to talk to him before.
She's not afraid.
No. And the person who comes from the select board should be prepared to answer
That's-
the questions that we have.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I'm
And-
just saying.
And I also,
Our job is going to be made easier because those questions are going to be levied Monday night.
I don't think it's a question for a selectman. I think it's a question for council, which is why I think it belongs in
Let them
executive
come and
session.
let them stand in front of us and give us an explanation of
That's what I'm
why
saying. I
they,
think it
what
belongs in
they're doing,
executive
what they're
session.
doing.
What's happening Monday night?
The man doesn't know how to not tip his hand, apparently, so. Don't ask.
All right, got it.
Next meeting is the,
Okay,
so if you're asking.
all right, any more?
comment,
Go
right?
ahead.
Well, that would be the
Tell 'em.
question is, would the request be to come to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
The next meeting date?
13 June.
Great.
Okay, and that night, 13 June is going to be the night of the public hearing?
Mhm.
So is everybody aware of that?
Decide that already?
We haven't decided that. That needs to be discussed and voted on.
It's on here. It's on the
Yeah,
agenda.
it is on the agenda, I know.
But we haven't voted on it yet.
Right. I'm just saying.
All right, folks, what's your pleasure?
I'm happy to reach out along with Kelly. As Kelly said she'll reach out. We'll reach out to our liaison, but I still think it's a matter for council to come to us and give us an update in executive session because it's an ongoing matter.
Okay. Well, all you can do is reach out and find out it's up to them. It's their decision. Because we're gonna hear that anyway. We're not paying for counsel, they are. So. Robert,
Just if there's a possibility of executive session, should we put a placeholder in the agenda for executive session?
I would think so.
Well, I just,
okay, that's all right. Let's do this first. That's exactly right. Thank you. Put a placeholder for the executive session on. Now we'll discuss the meeting, the general public meeting. What do you guys want? Is this state that we have now sufficient? Or that has been recommended sufficient?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You've totally lost me, David. What are you talking about?
We just talked a few minutes ago about the general public meeting that we have.
But we got,
I gave you a
You're
date.
talking about the public hearing.
Yeah, the public hearing. Then you said, nope, we don't want that date. It hasn't been voted on yet.
Correct.
So now I'm asking you,
do we,
What
is
are
that
alternatives
date
to the date?
okay? And can we vote on it to make it official, apparently?
Do you
Which-
want to have an executive session on the same day that you're having your public hearing?
Public hearing typically only takes about 10 minutes, so,
I take 10 minutes?
I mean,
You might drum up a lot of support this time, Kathy. I don't know.
I don't know.
You could be on Channel 18
Right,
and have,
right. I still think we can handle it.
okay.
We don't have a lot of agenda items, so.
I would do that first.
How was the response last year? Was it any different from any other year, having it in June versus August?
No. There was only a few people.
Okay,
I seem to recall we had a couple of town employees
we did.
Yeah.
last year.
It's
We
generally
did it
the
late
department
in June,
heads.
Too, we did the 20.
That's right, we did do it late, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with June, getting it over with.
Kelly?
I am not available if that matters for this.
Good, good job.
Good job.
She already told me that she's not doing it tonight.
So, anybody else? So is the consensus of the board? Yes,
Public hearing on the 13th?
on the 13th,
Which is our regularly scheduled
scheduled
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay? Done deal.
Has anybody drafted we need to draft the advertisement?
She does,
Well,
this is set.
I have them all drafted, and do y'all want to look at it after the meeting? They're
Sure.
right here on this screen, I mean, on my computer.
Sure.
Okay, also, we're starting at 6 for the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yep.
Start at earlier for the
Six-
executive?
6:15, 6:20, 6:30?
No.
You want to do it before?
I want to do the executive session before, because you're asking the public to come. Make it an easy time. Do you know what I mean?
No, I have no sympathy.
Oh,
You can just go into executive session, Executive session's not going to be any earlier than 6 PM, and after the public hearing, the board's going to adjourn into executive session, and it's not going to return to its open
There
session.
you go.
That's right.
There you go.
so
It can be the last thing on
start
the
at
agenda.
6 for public. And
It can be the
say
last
six-
thing on your agenda, and then you just adjourn after your public session, after your executive session.
Thank you, Mary.
You'll tell me afterwards. Move on.
Typically, we try to be more accommodating to those that have to attend the executive session.
We don't think it's going to be long. If we don't think the public hearing is going to be long, they're going to be waiting, 15 minutes? I don't care either way. I really don't.
I think, Jan, what you're saying is you didn't want to have the public here, and then we make them all leave so we can have executive session, and then
Well,
whoever's still
yeah.
around comes back
And I
for,
don't think you should, I think if you're gonna ask the public to come be,
Yeah.
like a normal invite, come at 6, not 6:20.
But that can happen with an executive session that opens the meeting,
Right.
because they don't come in until until you're done with executive session.
Everybody has to wait out the
So-
call and all.
Right. I'd rather go into personally, I would rather go into an executive session as the last item on the agenda. If we're not going to put a lot on the agenda, and really, what else do we have to talk about in June?
right? Okay,
So limit the agenda, do the public hearing, go into executive session and adjourn afterwards.
works for me.
Are we in agreement? Thank you. I don't have any ibuprofen with me.
I've got some.
All
I
right.
do too. We can both supply it.
Pass down the bottles.
Okay, that takes care of that. Website update, whole business.
What about the rescission of the
What-
funds?
yes.
Yeah.
Where?
On C,
You skipped over C.
I skipped over C. All right, possible open balances, complete projects, discussion. 2022 Article 31, East Harwich Union Cemetery Graveyard Preservation Project, open balance, $56,910.
I make a motion to rescind the funds from the 2022 Article Number 31 gravestone project in the amount of $56,910.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next.
Second one's postponed.
Second one's postponed.
Postponed.
Moving on.
Why?
What?
Yeah, just a question,
It
why?
was requested by Eric to postpone it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, old business, here we go.
I need to know those things.
Website
I told Dave
update,
already.
yeah, I knew that.
I knew,
Sorry.
he knew it.
Website update.
The only thing that we need to talk about is the informational packet. I think, well, the other update is that Sarah Eaton IT director did a first cut port, importing the old
Into the new.
forms into the new thing, which I've looked at. I have some questions about what she did, which she hasn't answered. She said, wait until after town meeting. I haven't had a chance to follow up with her since town meeting, but I will. Like she said at town meeting, it's supposed to go live in June. Hopefully, we can also have the form at least available for the committee to review by June. But I haven't looked at any of the details, so I don't really know. So the other thing that needs to be done is updating the informational packet, which you guys all hopefully got a copy of. It was just fixing dates and updating the low-income housing table. And I had a question about Dave's email, which I believe we need to change everywhere to harwich-ma.gov.
I think you're right.
But, and if there are no comments, or I'm asking for input now about the information packet, is there anything else that needs to change?
The only,
Kelly,
is
Raise
before
your
we,
hand.
the only thing I'm really hung up on is, when I was reading your information that you sent about the grant agreements
Oh, yeah.
being buried in there, is there any way to change it, to bring it forward in a more visible area? I don't know quite how to put
Well,
that.
so that is the online application. That language is not in the informational packet at all. So my question to you was, do you want that language brought into the informational packet as one of the, like, 15, I think it is now, mandatory, what's the word?
Mandatory terms and conditions for application.
Right, I mean, we could put that language in that list. It's still at the end of the informational packet. We could also pull the language up to the first page of the application once I get to the point where I can get in there and edit the application on the new website. So what is your?
Pleasure of the board. Do you understand what the discussion is?
Would you like me to read what's at the end of the online application out loud? And then we can talk about what to do with that language? You need to give me a moment, because
So we have the online application, John, or is it, do we have access to that?
there isn't a publicly available link. I
Okay,
know how to get to it. It'll take
Okay.
me a moment.
okay.
I can send the link to last year's application to all of you, so you can review it if you'd like.
Just a question, do they, before they can submit, do they have to check a box and say, I agree to the online terms and conditions at the end?
I don't think, hang on a minute, I actually.
'Cause that would be my
Let them open up.
Yeah,
the-
that's fine. That would be my suggestion, to either do that before they, at the beginning when they apply, or after the signature before they can submit.
I think that's there, but let's
Go
just.
ahead, take the time to,
just-
and I'm gonna divert a little bit from the discussion to this. I got an email from Karen Doucette, and this will be under other. And she asked the following question. She wanted to know if I can confirm, oh, come on. Okay, that's my suggestion. Hi, can you please confirm if Cranberry Valley Golf Course capital projects qualify to apply for CPC funding? Based on the recreational definition below, I assume it does. Please confirm this, and if it doesn't qualify, please provide the reasons why. Now, as chair, I can't answer that question, and I wasn't going to answer that question. So what I did was, I provided the following. I sent her an email and I stated this: hello, I suggested you go to the Harwich CPC website. The information you may need is there. If that doesn't work, you can call the coalition in Boston and make the request for what you're looking for. The number is on the website.
Isn't there an enterprise fund for golf? Yeah,
They're
so
looking,
golf,
they're looking for additional funding.
okay, so,
I'm just making the board aware of what was the discussion.
since when do we give legal opinions?
That's why I said the phone numbers to the coalition in Boston.
That's like giving somebody a zoning opinion before they buy a piece of property. I would say if we had an application before us, we could evaluate it at that
Well-
time. Because council, I think we decided that council would tell us whether things were a go or no-go.
Whatever the case, I heard from 3 selectmen. So the board's now aware. All right, thank you. John, you got the floor.
Okay, so to answer one of the questions, last year's online application, applicants could not proceed beyond the first page without checking off that they had
Perfect.
read the informational packet. So I can read out now what the last page says, what the applicant is agreeing to by signing their name, which is by entering your name below, the applicant represents and warrants that the information included is true and correct, best of the signer's knowledge and belief. Further, the applicant acknowledges in the event that the Community Preservation Committee agrees to grant funds to applicant and subject to town meeting approval, this application, together with the terms and conditions, shall constitute a binding agreement between the applicant and the Community Preservation Committee. Further, applicant acknowledges and agrees to execute any additional grant agreements should the Community Preservation Committee so request.
I think that's perfect.
That's it.
Just a question, so
Well,
what you
go
read
ahead.
would be on the packet?
That is not on the informational packet. That language is not there
But
right
it
now.
could be put on the packet.
Could definitely, and that,
Where is it now?
it's
On
on
the signature
the last page of the online,
Okay.
the signature page of the online application.
Okay.
So, and the applicant is required to print that off and physically sign that page under that language.
Okay, so can we, like, take that and put it on our first page somehow? Make the first page print smaller, font smaller, sorry.
The first page
Well, the first page of our,
of the online application?
no,
or
of this
the
informational packet.
You want it on the
I
first
would
page?
make it
Oh.
make it a new first page, make it a,
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Let's just say something,
Page 1A, page 1B, is that what you're suggesting?
why not? So that it's up front.
which part of it? That whole thing? Or just the last sentence about grant agreement? I mean, it would be a little,
I would add that, I think that last
Yeah,
section before the
the
signature page.
entire,
So
I just read, I don't know how many words it is,
what you read, that whole
The
thing,
whole
by
thing.
signing,
and where
by
would,
signing below, blah, blah, blah.
okay. But there's no signature here, so it shouldn't.
So I think
say-
if you put it at the front of the information packet and say, instead of by signing below, you say by submitting an application to the CPC, the applicant is acknowledging,
There's that whole thing.
and then keep it at the end, too.
and then
where
keep it
they're
at the
gonna
end
sign.
too.
At the end of the online
Yeah,
application.
right,
Yes.
right. So it's in
So-
two places.
So, but the first thing in the informational packet now is a cover page which gives a brief description of the two sections.
Right.
Then the first section is answering, is our project eligible? So I don't see the logical place to put it there. We could just add a page after the cover page that just has that language on it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That's what I was gonna suggest.
Kelly,
I was gonna suggest exactly that, like just put that on the next page by itself and then you go into this section.
But, and replaced by signing below,
Say,
by
by submitting an application.
application,
Correct.
blah, blah, blah.
Exactly, I think that works.
Okay,
Just putting it up front.
do that. It's no big deal.
Is the board comfortable with that?
Just, quite frankly, why are
Robin.
why are we doing this? Why isn't what we got already sufficient?
So I think John's point was that it's not, that language doesn't appear until you're finishing the application.
Okay.
So why not put it at the beginning of the information packet so that you're putting people on notice like right before they start,
Because
right?
it's not in the information packet now.
Well, I mean, that's
not
the point,
transparent.
is that the information packet doesn't talk about a grant agreement. Is that the issue? And shouldn't that be just a topic in the grant agreement? We may ask you to sign a grant agreement, and that is part of your signature.
Right, but I think that language will do that. I think it puts them on notice by saying if you're submitting an application,
So,
you're acknowledging that everything you submit is true and correct, and that that your application, together with the terms and conditions, constitute an agreement, and that you may have to sign other documents.
okay, do we give a copy of the grant agreement in the packet?
I don't know that we
In
do.
other words, if I'm just
No.
applying and I don't understand a grant agreement, where
Yeah.
am I gonna find, what does it mean, a grant agreement? That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I don't
that's
know
what
that
I
we do
thought
have
we were
one.
getting at, to have something in the
Yeah.
information page. That, to me, is more important, or it is important, too.
Do we have a standard grant agreement for
We
it?
do have a standard
do.
grant agreement,
Could,
but it wants to be exercised by the Board of Selectmen. They
so-
want control of the grant agreement.
Yeah, but you could still put it in the packet so that they have notice of what the grant agreement might look like.
Right.
So we could just add, if, we could add that as an appendix at the very end.
Sure. Yeah,
And
that'd
just
be
in
perfect.
parentheses in that language, see appendix A.
Yeah.
And I would just put form of agreement subject to change.
Yeah. I mean, we get very few grant agreements.
Correct. If any.
Again, that's outside entities,
Right.
not the town.
So does someone want to,
Kelly, hold on, we're still discussion.
Yeah, so, I guess a question on that, should it clarify in there that the only people that need to sign a grant agreement are those entities that are not town? Should that be in there? I have a couple questions, so that's one of them. Should there be that clarification if we're putting this language in already? And then my other, I guess, comment is that the language that John just read to us does not specifically say grant agreement. It says this application, together with any terms and conditions, shall constitute a binding agreement. So if we want to.
But then it
Given-
continues and says, and the applicant
Okay,
may be subject to
Please.
signing additional agreements. Yeah.
apologies, I missed that.
That's, let me ask you this. The furball was the trust.
Yep.
Signing the grant agreement.
Yep.
Do we eliminate the trust, or what terms, what specific language can we put in there that allows the trust to do what it has to do, and yet we can do what we have to do with
Trust, so
others?
the trust is a legal entity, and I think our information is that trusts across the state are required to sign a grant agreement with CPC, so I think they have to sign a grant agreement. I think we just have to understand that once we issue the money, we can't rescind it because they're a legal entity, and that's the
So
way we're
like
giving it
this
to.
year, we took out that one line.
Right,
which
exactly.
I don't have a problem with regards to them, but I do think we should still require a grant agreement with them.
I think so too, because
It's
they're,
not gonna happen.
I disagree.
There was a furball over that. I thought we had this discussion.
We did, and we removed the dates.
We removed the
All right,
language.
so what I'm saying now is, should we remove the information, just the term, the trust, the housing trust of the town of Harwich?
I don't think so. I
It's
think
not the town of Harwich, it's the housing trust.
it's a separate legal entity. I think it needs to sign a grant agreement, and the Board of Selectmen should be executing one with the trust. That's how to Kathy's point, that's what we agreed the last time.
I'm gonna find that vote, but we voted that, y'all voted that the trust doesn't have to have a grant agreement. You didn't take out a line, you said that they're excused.
I
That's
do not
what-
think we did that.
that-
No,
that's,
that's all fine.
that's what we just went through.
I do not recall that.
I spent the last 2 to 3 months in this argument. They were
We discussed-
concerned with the three, they were
We
concerned
discussed,
with the
that we
3-year.
agreed, correct, we agreed that they didn't have, that we didn't have the right to rescind the money. We agreed that.
And they wanted their own terms because of their a fiduciary.
Correct.
Not a,
And we talked about all that, and yeah, they are a fiduciary. And they have to
and
spend
we,
the money.
yeah,
as
and we
a- as a
decided
fiduciary
not
way.
to,
No, I don't think we did decide not to require an agreement.
let me see if we have it in the minutes.
A motion was made by Mary, seconded by Bob, that a contract between the town of Harwich and the Community Preservation Committee as one, and the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust, that the CPC agrees to, to delete the vote to rescind the provision that says CPC won't rescind CPA funds after 3 years.
So they still are required to have an agreement.
Right. But they won't sign.
I know I am.
All right, let me get my prayer rug and head east.
They
Okay,
have to sign an agreement.
okay.
We just agreed that they're not subject to rescission like everybody else because of the way we give them the funds. So for example, with, the difference is, say like,
Good thing I muted this phone.
say it's Habitat for Humanity, and you're giving them money. If they don't give us the reports, they don't spend the money, perhaps we could rescind it. We could rescind the money if we hadn't doled it out to them. The trust is required as a fiduciary to manage those funds in accordance. Once we give them the money, we don't have control over how they spend it. So that was the whole point of the
Okay. I stand
discussion.
corrected.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Okay, so let's get back to the initial discussion. How we want to handle this? What's,
I like Kelly and John's suggestion of putting a separate page in. Just slightly change the language from the signature line. And if people want to put a sample form agreement in, I would say to John's suggestion, put a sample form agreement in as an appendix, and I would just put at the bottom, terms subject to change.
So it already says, well, that the applicant acknowledges and agrees to execute any additional grant agreement should the Community Preservation Committee so request.
Agreed. I'm just saying if you're giving them a form, you want to make sure that they're not relying that's not the exact
Yeah,
form,
okay.
that's all.
So I could add a sentence after that, see the example form,
Yep,
the details of which are subject to change.
perfect.
So does someone have an example form they can send to me? Okay.
One of them has one.
And I will have the document edited shortly, and we'll send yet another version out. I think what I'm gonna do, I mean, unless you guys don't care to review it, but I'd feel more comfortable just.
Oh, we love to review it, John. I have reviewed it like several times,
Yeah, I
so.
know you have.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Robert, go ahead.
Just a technical question. I saw we've eliminated the USB drive, and is that because we can, the new website allow you to allow documents of any size?
I took that sentence out in a couple of places, and I left a note there, which, I don't know how people are reading this, but I've been adding comments.
Right.
That
see
I
the
have to
comments
verify
too,
that.
right. Yep.
When I talked to Sarah, she said, I asked her, what's the deal with file sizes? And she said, well, I tried a file of 35 megabytes and that works, so probably there's no limit, but I'm not sure, I don't feel entirely comfortable with that, and so I need to verify that it doesn't matter. And
Okay.
I just have to get to the details. So that stuff,
That's a large file, isn't it?
well, but we've had files that were bigger. I think, in fact, the
And Rose was,
Penrose was like 120.
Easy.
yeah.
I mean, people people put together a document with a lot of photographs and graphics, and it can get, and, you know, fancy formatting and stuff, it can get big.
All those Revolutionary War things.
Exactly, all those
Yeah,
photos.
That's true. Okay, so, we're there?
Yeah.
Kelly?
I have 2 additional questions and comments. One may pertain to a later discussion item anyway, so I'll ask the earlier one. Talking about progress reports earlier, in the language in here, it doesn't require someone to be in person. Should we have that, that's under like point 11 on page 11? The applicant shall provide the town through CPC with progress reports biannually, but doesn't say that a physical person needs to be there. Should that be outlined in there?
Where are you, Kelly?
Page 11, that's under mandatory terms and conditions for application. So section 5, line item 11.
Mary, didn't we have that show up upon request?
I don't have that.
Is there someplace?
I don't remember. I think we should just calendar that for our next, I think we should,
Okay.
if it doesn't say it, we should calendar it so that we can change it.
It's someplace.
That's a good point.
If it's
That
not
is
here,
good.
it's in the regular app, because it is someplace.
Might be in the
Sure
terms
it
and,
is.
was it? I thought it was in the
I
terms
just
and
noticed that it
conditions.
wasn't in here, so that's why I wanted to make that point, or it's just not in this bullet. That would make sense to me to be in there. It does say, of course, that we reserve the right to require supplementary information.
Right.
But my thought being, like, if we're getting an update from Natural Resources, like we got a paper update, but we didn't have a physical person to answer
Okay, what it does say is it says the CPC now requires a biannual written update of progress on all projects. Reports will be presented at a spring and fall regularly scheduled meeting. The CPA project funding request application, blah, blah, blah. So it does say reports will be presented.
Where
But-
is that?
It's number 4 of the,
Reporting requirements.
yeah.
We could propose putting in a
Yeah.
sentence that just says
In-
project managers are requested to attend the,
We could just say reports will be presented in person at a spring and fall regularly scheduled meeting.
that works too.
I took out the months because we've been a little off with the months, so let's put spring and fall in 2 places. So I would just say reports will be presented in person at a spring and fall regularly scheduled meeting.
John, have you got that?
It's in there.
Okay. All right, Kelly, you've got the floor.
Point number 2 is under, again, mandatory terms and conditions. Number 14, or it might be 15, is the second from the last. So upon completion of the project, the applicant shall identify that the project was funded, blah, blah, blah. So I guess a question with that is, do we monitor that, or who monitors that that's being complied with? And my other thought is that this is a good opportunity to request or expect folks, like during construction or however, to put out signs, because then that isn't on us to be doing and monitoring as we are. Like, we could provide those signs and make sure that they're up for the duration of construction projects. So that's just a question and suggestion at the same time.
We do not monitor, okay? We have it in here. We hope that, many will, and many do, and there are a few that don't. So that's why we came up with the whole signage sort of question and production of the signs. So we don't have a way to monitor it.
I'm asking a question kind of for the public
Yeah.
too, just saying
Yeah.
that's in there. I assume the answer.
Right.
Mhm.
It's a good point, Kelly.
Okay, anything else? Kelly?
No, Dave, I am all set. Thank you. Thank you to the board.
Okay, anything else from the board? All right, next dates for meetings? 13th, June 13th, July 11th, and August 8th. Does that fit into everybody's calendar? Oh. Good idea. How about some volunteers for Channel 18 to announce the public hearing? Wow. Girls on fire. Okay, Kelly?
Thank you.
Any information you need?
I'll talk with Kathy as,
Okay. You all set, Jen? All right.
Shall I tell Diane to give you a call?
Probably. She doesn't know the situation, John, or does she?
I don't know. My wife does the interview.
oh, that's right. I forgot that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to, okay. Ready to adjourn?
Context.
Any other questions from anybody on the board? Do I hear a motion?
Move that we adjourned.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, folks.